Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, we normally date stamp these things. And this one is year 3 blog 28, or in legacy numbers, it's blog 132. My God, yes, 132. And today is September the 1st, 2024. But let me stop there, because it's not. No, that would have been my introduction to a blog last week. But a life-changing event occurred. And basically it's something that I thought was something I could avoid, first of all, and something that I knew was more likely to happen the longer I was waiting. And as most people will sort of know, I've been waiting for an operation to unblock a ventricle in my heart. And it had been 12, 13, 14 weeks since I had my procedure. And that's 14 weeks too long. But I do understand the National Health Service, long waits for things. But when you consider everybody's lifestyle is different, I have my job and its stresses, I have my family and its stresses, and I have other stresses that go on privately in your own life. And it all came to a fold on Sunday. But to be quite honest, that's something that I would be telling you guys the next blog. So it's something that is very difficult for me to say, how do you therefore do your blogs from now on? Do you have one episode missing? Do you combine two together? Or you could do, that was the blog that wasn't, which is what this is, really. So a lot of my blogs are on the fly. A lot of my information I give you is fresh in my memory to give you on that day. And a lot of it as well is written down for me, what I've done this week. Mostly that's the watching stuff. Yeah. So when I'm thinking about how I plug this gap and I go down this route, which I'm doing now, I have to think, is this going to be a long one? Is it going to be a short one? Is this going to be a blog as near as damn it as what I would have given on Sunday? Or is it going to be what I consider good enough to say it was a blog and do the best I can with the next blog and fill in the gaps? So you'll have to bear with me. We'll go through the structure together, as we always do. So I'm hoping you're going to enjoy this. I'll do the very best I can. Memory now is going to be even more faded and grey than it was when I was going to do it last Sunday, because certain stuff is on the fly, like I said. So let me think. I would normally do the news first, because it date stamped this particular blog. But then again, I would have written down the notes for the war and what's going on in the week on the actual morning I do the blog, so that the news is most up to date. So all I can tell you is the Ukraine war continues. God bless them. We want the war to end. That's it for the Ukraine section. Like I say, it's not going to be the best type of blog that you'll ever see, but bear with me. When it comes to the UK, I think the news continued in regards to the despicable behaviour of the riots, but it was really sort of like coming to an end. And the biggest news, if I remember rightly, was that Oasis had joined back together And on that particular Saturday, tickets were going to go on sale. I knew that tickets sales weren't going very well for the people that were buying them. And that's what I would have reported on Sunday. I would have stated that people were waiting for hours. You would have been in a queue of thousands. And then when you actually did get to the point where you were going to be buying the ticket, it might not necessarily have been at the price. And that's all I probably would have commented on. Obviously, more has happened this week, but of course that would be in the following blog. So I can only report, I think a lot of people were very happy. It's nice that people can see a band that they used to see back in the day or listen to back in the day get back together. I'm not excited. I did go to see Oasis, but that doesn't necessarily mean that just because it's one of the concerts and events I've seen in my youth that I would want to get all nostalgic again and go back to that period. I look at Britpop with happy and sad times. I would definitely say it was an uptick in music compared to the couple of years previous to that, which was mostly, if I remember rightly, hip hop, dance, etc. I was more a Britpop than I was a hip hop dance type thing. But saying that, you also had the tunes that you liked, the songs that you liked, the bands that you liked, and I was never, if it's a choice between Oasis and Blur, I'm in that side. I never went down that route. I'm finished with all of that gobbledygook of which one was better and all of that. So that's the news. Hey, that was quite nice and easy. Now, this is where I would turn around and say what's been going on in my week. And to be quite honest, this is going to be quite tricky because it's nearly 2 weeks ago now. So let me think for a moment, because I tried to do this live. I am, alive. Whee! I had started my week of holiday. That's right. I'd been off work, not very well, but I'd seen the physio and we were waiting for, she said that my procedure is the thing that would help with my nerve. So that saddened me for the week because I wanted to do lots of walking and get my health better. I tried with walking all the week. Didn't get very far. So Monday and Tuesday is more what can we do about my mother, who wasn't very well. Now, we had the emergency services out last Sunday, and they recognised that there was an ear infection. I remember that. And I needed to get some drops for that. They'd given her some tablets, but I needed to get standard paracetamol as soon as possible. So I do remember at the early part of that week that I needed to go down to the pharmacist, which is in the doctor's surgery, to get this medication, because it was compounded by the fact that we had a bank holiday Monday. So you couldn't go down on the Monday. So when I went down on the Tuesday, I went to the pharmacist and they said, we won't have that till the next day. And that's a bad situation to be in, because this was one of the biggest pharmacies that we've got. It's actually inbuilt into the doctor's surgery. So they told me you'd have to try other pharmacists. So I said, well, where's the closest one? And they told me, in my town where the nearest one was. I thanked them. I walked out. I did order the drops to be there the next day, just in case I couldn't get what I needed. And I went about a mile down the road and found a pharmacist, and it was shut between lunch, between 1 and 2. Brilliant. And then went to another pharmacist that I thought was a pharmacist years back. It was over in a totally different part of town. But that had closed down and had become a part of the co-op supermarket. So that was useless. So then I had to think to myself, how urgent was this, which I felt was too urgent for me to avoid. And I parked in the middle of town because I went to the car park that was closest to where I needed to get it, and it turned into an NCP car park that has that silly, you can't pay, you have to do it all by app, which I refuse to do. So I actually went into the middle of town and parked, out nearly in the market square, and paid in cash. I don't like apps. I don't like all this stuff. You have to scan a code, download this app, blah, 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 bollocks. I hardly ever park in your car parks, and then I've got another piece of software that wants to be updated and all that crap. Nah, sod it. So anyway, I parked up, managed to find a car parking space. Brilliant. Walked into Boots. That's where I was going, Boots. And I spoke to the lady behind the counter. And, well, I hobbled up to her, to be quite honest. At this point, my leg was killing me. And she said, we got one bottle. I went, I want it, thanks. And I had to wait 20, 25 minutes for it to be processed through the system for me to take. Now, this was a bit ridiculous. Processed through the system? You've got it out the back there, and I've got a prescription there from an ambulance that says this person needs it. Anyway, I didn't complain. Waited 20 odd minutes. I parked for half an hour. And the guy that came up to me said, here you go. And he just happened to mention that the bottle milliliters that the ambulance person left behind was a bigger bottle than they actually do. They don't make that size bottle, haven't done in the last 15 years, but neither here nor there, he rounded it down to the bottle that he thought we needed, which is a week's worth of drops. And then explained to me it would be best for you to buy a packet of paracetamol to go with it, because that will help with the infection. I thanked him very much and took the bottle, got into my car, drove home. Then instantly I put the drops in my mum's ears, gave her the paracetamol tablet, tried to make her eat. She wouldn't. Got her a cup of tea. She had that, but drank half of it. And this is a very big worry for me, because if you remember rightly, this is Tuesday. The ambulance was there on at the weekend. And we need my mother better, and she was not in the best of minds. So Wednesday comes along. I continued to help my mum. She had eaten a slice of bread toasted. She had half of it. So she had half a slice of toast and 2 custard cream biscuits the whole of that day. I can tell you that now on a Wednesday. I continued to put the drops in, continued to give her tablets, continued to make her cups of tea to make her comfortable, and did my chat with Ian, which I always look forward to. I had a nice chat that Wednesday. I don't think anything untowards occurred. I don't think anything was there that stressed me, if I remember rightly, in regards to the chat, and what's going on in the chat and the questions. So I think that was okay. And Thursday and Friday was much ado as Tuesday. Continued to give my mum her drops, continued to give her her tablets, continued to try and make her eat. I did manage to get her to have a sandwich by Friday. Otherwise, it was all little lemon cakes or custard cream and lots of cups of tea. My sister then turned up on Saturday and we made the decision. She's not eating. It's been far too long. We'll call the ambulance out. So we called the ambulance out on Saturday. They came in, did a blood pressure check, seemed to be okay, did a temperature check, seemed to be okay. Didn't really do a cognitive test for memory or anything like that. But as soon as we mentioned this bad taste that my mum's got in her mouth, and I believe that bad taste, along with the depression I think my mum's in, is stopping her from eating. So as soon as I mentioned taste, they said, I wonder if she's got COVID. And all I could do was fill her in and say she didn't have the vaccine. She refused. My sister's the same, but I took the vaccine. So I took 3 or 4 of those injections until they stopped doing it. My mother hadn't been out all that week, other than once into the post office on Tuesday to get the papers. And that happened out of my control because I had to go and get the tablets from the pharmacy. That's right. So she'd gone next door to get the papers. And she was already in a bad state then. So I can't say that where she would have got COVID from, other than from me. And I'd had a bad cold the week before. But as far as I'm aware, I don't have COVID. I've got no lack of taste. I'm out the other end. That morning, I do remember feeling a little bit clammy, but nothing untowards. I've always had a stuffy nose. As you know, my nose got broken in the late 80s, early 90s. So I've always had a bit of a stuffy nose. So they did a COVID test. And it proved positive. Much to the annoyance and the concern of my sister and me and my mother. My mother then asked questions, what's COVID, all of this sort of stuff, because she can't remember the lockdown too much, really. I tried to remind her, about my granddad, her dad, dying during COVID, just to try and bring her memory back. But I do believe that it's the eardrops and the infection in her ear and stuff that basically was affecting her memory at that time. So I wasn't concerned too much that she didn't really remember it. All I did was have a big explanation from the hospital, the ambulance people, that said that might be why she's got a bad taste. We can't rule that out. We can't take her in. There's nothing to take her in for. I think she will improve. Her sugar levels are great. Continue to try and make her eat. And maybe if she does eat more, her energy levels will increase and she won't feel so tired. For which I have to sort of say, thanks very much, ambulance people. They came very quickly. They were here for a couple of hours. They filled us in with all the information. And my sister and I then had to formulate what we were going to do for the next week, with me being still off work. I had another week of holiday. That's where it would end, because I would then do my blog, wouldn't I? So no more until the next blog, where I will explain what happened Saturday night, going into Sunday, where the blog was going to be done. So we move on to shoutouts. I hope you understand that's all from memory. I'm pretty sure I've got the timeline just about right, just about the detail there. And and we'll talk more about my mum and that in the next blog. So we now move to shout-outs. Now, I can only really talk about the shout-outs of what was there at the time that I was going to be doing this blog. I won't be reading out, actually, the comments and stuff until the next blog, because you're not going to be able to comment on this fast enough for me to incorporate it into the next blog. So if you wish, please do so. I will scan it. But after this, you've received this, I will be heavily into writing up my next blog, which will be for tomorrow. So, shout-outs. Big shout-outs to all these people that have left a comment. They are Ian Hill, The Ramblings, Mark Fletcher, Steve's Gaming, Martroid, Muckman-Movies, Bushman Blue, Pippa Jones, Gans Teeth, Mamemeister, and Through the Lens. Thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful. And all of your comments will be read in the next blog. Thank you. I absolutely love reading comments and so forth. And we now move, because that huge big chunk of me reading out all the comments moves us to watched on YouTube. So, wow! In 21 minutes, we've moved to the very end. And we start off with watched on YouTube. And we get to the two that I watch the most every week, which is This Week in Retro and Tech Moan. Which is funny because This Week in Retro that week had actually decided to have a holiday. So there was only the Tech Moan for me to comment on. And he did something called the Bose Wave Goodbye. So yes, Bose, I love the word. I love that company, Bose. High-end audio equipment, okay? Very expensive high-end, I might say. And something that I'd have loved to have been able to buy in the back end, of those formative years of Bose stuff. I had Technics. That was the last thing that was expensive to me in the hi-fi range until I started concentrating on home theatre systems. So, because most of their stuff is headphones related and all of that sort of stuff, I never really bought Bose stuff. Yeah. And this one was called Bose Wave Goodbye, and Techmoan was talking about the Wave system, which was their unique patent for their speaker system. And it was goodbye to it because you can no longer buy it. He then went into Bose stores, for which he found out that a lot of them are now closed. And closed a good few years back. He was quite surprised. He thought that they'd actually closed after COVID. Actually, they were closing down before. He did a recap on what the Wave is, whether it's worth buying them now, because you can buy them on the Bose website, and you can buy the second-hand older versions that were back in the day. When I say back in the day, I'm talking like 2020, 2019, not that far back. You can buy them on eBay, and they tend to hold their value a little bit. So he did a sort of like a little bit of a, is it worth buying a newer one or buying an older one or whatever. So it was a very, very good half an hour that I recommend anybody to watch. And, we now move on to what I watched this week, that particular week. And I was on holiday, so it was a little bit more, actually. When I say a little bit more was in my alerts box for stuff that was coming out. So I watched something called Game Raw X. It was the top 30 worst game consoles of all time. Yeah, I must have been a bit bored possibly that day, because I've seen no end of 150 consoles, starting with 150 up to number 1, which is the best. This is a top 30 worst game consoles. For the most part, every single one I knew. And the one that would be at number 1, I guessed. So, no really surprises, but it was very professionally well done and worth, it's worth the 20 minutes or so that you can watch that video. Then I watched something called You've Been Gamed. And that's because there was a Spectrum release date reveal. Yes. So this is now all old news, but you'd have heard this last Sunday, where a full-size Spectrum is coming out. That's right. The people that make the Commodore 64 Mini, and they made the large Commodore 64, and did the A500 Mini, are bringing out a full-size Spectrum. It's going to have lots of features, you know. It'll be much the same as how the Commodore version works. You stick a USB stick in, you can sideload your own games. It'll have features like save states. You're going to be able to have 48 games already on board. I don't believe it comes with a joystick. In fact, I'm still in the dark on whether it does. I believe it doesn't. Which makes sense when you consider what the Spectrum is. It is the full-sized Spectrum as it was when it came out in 1982 for the rubber keyed design. It's not a Spectrum Plus. It's not a Plus 2, a Plus 3, a Next, or anything else. This is a small board with a fast chip on it that handles the graphics as well, with certain amount of onboard RAM, that has got an emulation system on it to play Spectrum games and load them up like an emulator in hardware. Yeah. So very good, and I believe it's priced under £100. And for anybody that's got any type of memory to those days, absolutely brilliant, because I think the thing that's the sell point here is the rubber keyboard. The rubber keyboard, iconic for its machine, but also even under emulation, it's very difficult to know how to get certain graphics that were on the keys, because you had to use special functions like shift and function plus A to get this, which there is no function key on a PC keyboard. So when you're looking at emulation, it's definitely having a mapping, you know, a mapping thing that you'd have to remember or have close at hand to understand how to do things. So am I going to buy one? Probably not. I had one, and it was a 48K Spectrum, very early days, that I fixed. So I fixed a Spectrum, and it was mine to keep because it was from the shop that my sister was working at. And I sold it and bought things for my then VIC-20 / Commodore 64. I believe it was for the VIC-20 actually. Yeah, I think I bought the tape data set, if I remember rightly. A better joystick than the Commodore VIC joystick, which was a white piece of shit that was designed like the Atari 2600 joystick, but was worse. And I bought a load of cartridge games, if I remember rightly, and tape stuff. So that actually worked out quite well, although I missed it actually, because I only had about 4 or 5 games for it before I sold it on. I'd only had it literally for about 8 or 9 weeks. It's however long a schoolboy can save up enough cash to have a little play on a new system that they've got. So take it as read. Anything that I could get pirated probably from school, plus around about 3-4 weeks worth of games, and cheap ones at that, or donated from friends. So yeah, I think Trashman I played, Trans Am I played, Jetpack I played. Those come to mind. And Lord of the Rings. Yeah, think. Not sure on that one. Anyway, brilliant. You've been gamed. Definitely recommend if you want to look at the announcement, but I should think now that there's probably better out there to watch. Then we've got Modern Vintage Gamer, who contemplated the question, was the PS2 Emotion engine overhyped? For which I'll let you watch. I didn't agree with his assumption on it. Whenever something is new, then basically Sony can capitalize on that by telling you that it's faster than anything else on the market when actually it's not. So I think it was overhyped, personally, myself. But that's just my particular position on that. That's me looking back at knowing what the PS2 and the Xbox would do, what figures were being produced, what the industry was saying to us, with no worldwide specific figures to back them up. Yeah, the architecture on the Emotion engine was not being explained. So Sony were definitely pushing the raw grunt values. Wrong thing to do. Anyway, we then move on to another one, which is called Rerun Zone. They did 12 sci-fi movies in the 60s you missed. I like these little channels, Rerun Zone and so forth, because I like to know, I bet you any money I've watched all 12, right? And I looked at it and there was one. So I did learn something. There you go. Heard of 4. But usually I'm on target by going, yeah, try getting one past me on science fiction from the 60s. Movies at that I wouldn't know about. You know what I mean? And I've watched a lot of B movies and crap. So, yeah, that was quite fun. Then I saw a show called TV Crazy Man. And this just popped up because it was an Abbott and Costello bloopers and goofs remastered. So I probably might have seen it, but I watched it anyway because I like Abbott and Costello and I need cheering up. So that was quite nice. Then I saw something that was very interesting that I'd missed. It was a channel called Comic Book Historians, and they did something called Romita Senior 2001 Interview remastered. Now, I watched it all the way through. It was 52 minutes, and it's on John Romita Senior, the person that I thought drew Spider-Man the best in the lifetime that I have read Spider-Man in a comic format. And although there was only some things new that I picked up, knowing that I still miss him since his death last year, it was nice to see a smiley face talking about his career. Yeah, it was very nice. And I went and put that link into the interesting sites section of my Discord. And hopefully people got around to looking at it, because I think it's a very, very good documentary interview. But anyway, we move on, because we move to a channel called RCT85, and that's because of the latest release that week, which was the Castlevania Dominus Collection. Now, this is brand spanky new for that week. And basically what had happened is the Dominus Collection is another set of Castlevania games bumped together where they've actually enhanced them slightly, or you can play them as they were on several formats: Switch, PC, PS5, Xbox X, etc. And they were on Castlevania games that we're now definitely getting that I haven't played, because they're past Symphony of the Night, and basically I haven't really played much Castlevania past that particular game. So it was interesting to know what this guy was thinking about the Castlevania Dominus Collection, and whether it was worth buying on either the Switch or the PS5 or whatever. To me, it made perfect sense that the Switch, I thought, would be the most sensible system to buy it on, or the PC. The PS5, I love as much as you love it, and the Xbox X, yeah, and you're using their controllers. The PC gets updated all the time, and the Switch is a handheld, which can be also on the screen. So to me, the PC and the Switch always seem to be the ones that would dominate buying that on. I'm totally wrong, of course. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I know more about retro than I do about modern stuff. But in my head, that makes sense. And it was just interesting to hear this guy's take on which one was best and some of the hidden features and stuff. And that's what came up in my alert box. And then there is the stuff that comes up because, you know, I'm subscribed to people that are friends. All of that sort of stuff. So we moved to Euphoria Pictures, who I've always mentioned, you know, does an absolutely subliminal set of videos each week. He'd done... I've got to try and read this now. Remember, it's my writing from a week ago. King Kong 4K unboxing for definite. And then Strangers, I think it's chapter 1 4K unboxing. So he did a couple of unboxings. The King Kong one was most depressing for me because I didn't have that particular edition, and it's one that I wanted. But that isn't going to stop me wanting to know what was inside the box, and it's a gorgeous box set, and I'm glad he got it. We then moved to my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings, and he had the top 5 films of 1995 to 2001. So think about that, 1995 to 2001, each day, the top 5 films of that year coming out. So that's a lot of content itself. Then he had some gift unboxings, Vampire Bat 1933 film review, The Irishman review, Doctor Who Planet of the Daleks review, X-Files Season 2 Episode 11 review, and then of course you've got Ian and me chatting that week, which would have been 2 weeks ago now. So, yeah, what can I say about my friend Ian other than please go sub him. Please go like some of his videos. At least go and watch a couple. See whether you like. He's so diverse with his stuff. Worth a watch. Then you've got Through the Lens, who had done Crow Ultimate Brain Rot review. The only thing I can say about my friend Through the Lens, John, is that if you put a title like that, then you sort of know already going in it's not going to be a good review about The Crow, is it? But saying that, it was interesting his point of view on The Crow. I've now seen that film, so I can comment about it soon, which I might do. And he talks about everything, you know, the stylized type of cinematography that's in it, the soundtrack, the acting, the story, etc., etc. The one thing I disagreed with through the whole of it was I thought the cinematography was good, but it started to rant. It started to get on my nerves towards the end of the film. This very stylized look that's there, very beautiful looking, but slow motion and all of that sort of stuff to give you even that bigger, oh, isn't that pretty type thing. Yeah. Towards the end, you're going, come on. How many times are you going to do that sort of shot? Jesus. Just tell the story, for God's sake. So, yeah. Totally get it. Then, definitely worth a watch. Please go and watch this. Please go and sub. Definitely worth your while. His reviews are slightly more in depth than others, if you know, to be quite blunt, which is a good thing. And he goes to the cinema an awful lot, so you'll be able to know a little bit more about a film, you know, that's a bit more modern than physical media, which is a couple of months old, you know. Then we got Mondo Chelloveck movies, which, as you know, he's sort of my person now to know about horror and so forth. He was doing his Hammer Horror in 4K. And Craig Burton's Vinegar Syndrome, should I say, parcel unboxing. So Vinegar Syndrome is a boutique label. Craig Burton is one of his friends. He was doing a parcel unboxing of Vinegar Syndrome stuff. I've only got one thing from Vinegar Syndrome, and that's Showgirls, and it is gorgeous. I mean, it is the most gorgeous box set you can come across. So that's very interesting. I was more interested in the Hammer Horror in 4K. If what's being said in that video is true, then it's exciting times for anybody that's into the Hammer Horror genre. And exciting times ahead. So yeah, for definite. And then we've got my friend Pete, Playtendoguy. He did a live chat the day before this blog would have been done, so it would have been on the Saturday last week. And some shorts, Funko Pop stuff, that sort of stuff. So definitely go watch that. Every single one of those, give a sub to, give a like to. You're bound sure to find something that you're going to love. And then we get towards the end now, and that's your YouTube. And that is the old naming of what I used to do for Mamemeister's Discord and friends of all of us, and what these guys had done. And this particular week we had Down the Rabbit Hole. He did a Nintendo DS Star Trek Tactical Assault game review, which was very interesting because I used to have Star Trek Tactical Assault, but not for the DS. Nintendo DS handheld, yeah. I had it on the fuller system. So it was quite interesting to see how that panned out. Very interesting, very fun. And then he did a 2000 AD reliving buying the magazine 30 or 40 years on. Yes, but that's because Down the Rabbit Hole has now started to bring out videos for when he was over in England. He's back over now in Canada. But he did a trying to buy 2000 AD from magazine stalls, or WH Smiths in this instance. You know, at each stop that he was into, because he was going to Ireland and he was going to Manchester and he was going to Scotland. So of course he'd probably buy them at WH Smiths from all of those places, or at the railway platform or airport platform that he was visiting at the time. And then he did another video called Tomato Juice at 36,000 feet. Brilliant. Down the Rabbit Hole, such a nice guy, such a warm guy, and so funny. Definitely go and watch those videos, and if you can, like and subscribe. I'm very big on community. If I wouldn't say like and subscribe to these people if I didn't think that I thought that there was something there that you wouldn't like. I'll tell you now, I'd just say I watch this. So for definite, I think there's stuff there that you'd find funny or enjoyable. And then we got Robert's Retro Gaming, who I consider royalty. Started his YouTube channel a little bit after me, around about the same time, and just after Steve's Gaming, and basically has ran with his channel. You'll see in a moment just what his content is like. It's just astronomically, and I'm therefore not surprised how big his channel has grown. And he's sort of like the Atari royalty of us. Loves his Atari, but he does far more than just that. So just to give you a third instance, 8-Bit Gaming, Astro Media, I think there's a game that he played, and Poker Sam, that's on the Ataris. Spectrum, he played Moon Alert and Robotron 2084. On the Commodore 64, he played Gyrus and Omega Race. And that was quite fun to watch all of this week, especially Omega Race, because Omega Race, to me, if somebody was to ask me which version should you play, the Commodore 64 or the VIC-20, I'd always turn around and say, oh, VIC-20. Without doubt. And my opinion has not changed looking at the Commodore 64 version. And I believe I've done an Omega Race capsule review, if you look in the history, you know, or go to my playlists. But I played the VIC-20 version. So here's the perfect chance for you to see a VIC version, and the Commodore VIC version, against the Commodore 64 version. The Commodore 64 version has got sprites, it's got more colour, it's got a larger palette when it comes to sound, right? Because it's got virtually a synthesizer inside it with pitch modulation and so forth. The VIC-20 has less, but that doesn't mean it isn't a powerful sound chip, because it was at the time. And you will see what the Commodore 64 one. I'm sure it's not using sprites, it's using character graphics. It is nice that you could change the color of the background more to a slightly larger palette, but that's about it. It's bloody fast, but I found it quite choppy. So go and make your own mind up. I hope that's excited you enough to go and see his and see my video of the VIC-20 version. And then he played on the SNES Kirby's... Can't read that. I think it says Avalanche. Kirby's Avalanche or something like that. Yeah. You'll notice it anyway. It's called Kirby and it's on the SNES, which was very interesting. And that's Robert's Retro Gaming. And like I say, royalty, I bow my head to him. Bloody hell. Deserves every subscriber he's got. But please go and have a look. Maybe like a couple of videos. You know, watch a couple. Then we got 20th Century Gaming. On the Saturday, he did a live 64 gaming, which was absolutely brilliant. I did watch that on Saturday night. Found that fun. And then we've got Mamemeister, who did that week multiplayer gaming. So he tried to play Age of Empires on the Wednesday. I watched it as a rerun and loved it. Thought it was brilliant. So fun trying to watch my friend try and play a real-time strategy game that he hasn't picked up in quite a few years and try and play it online. Brilliant. Definitely worth a look. He looked at the N-Go, which is the new Spectrum machine he's bought from my friend Steve's Gaming. That was brilliant. And then, of course, he did his Friday Waffle. And that, believe it or not, was the blog I was going to do, apart from the films that turned up that week and the trailers. So I'm going to end it there. It's very shorter, 46 minutes, in fact. I hope this just fills in a little bit. Puts a lot of people's mind at rest in regards to my mother, at least. And tomorrow's a new blog. When I put this to bed, I will be concentrating on writing down all the stuff that's happened this week, written down. I've got all your comments to read out from last week and any new ones that might come across onto this system. Because I don't think it's worth showing you trailers to something that I can add to tomorrow. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you so much for watching. I hope I've entertained enough. I hope things are okay with you. I hope you're still going to stay around for me. I really do want my channel to grow. And I'll continue to do this as long as I can. I've got lots of ideas. I'm not dead yet. I'm not going anywhere yet. Keep a smile like I'm trying to do. And with that, I'm going to say salute, as I always do. And hopefully see you tomorrow in the proper place for a blog. Bye-bye.